Hello, I'm so glad you're here. As new teachers, you've likely spent the last few months just trying to keep your head above water. Today, we're going to talk about how to stop surviving and start thriving. We'll be focusing on two skills that will be your greatest assets for the duration of your teaching career: adaptability and lifelong learning. My name is Piazza. I have been teaching for over 8 years. I've taught both in person and online, and I've done pretty much every course you could think of in the middle school to elementary school levels, including an elective for high school. So I've taught quite a few different courses over my 8 years, and I don't have it all figured out yet, but I do have some wisdom to share with you today. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to define and apply adaptability in a classroom setting, implement the two manageable strategies for continuous professional growth, and reframe challenges as learning opportunities, while also identifying resources for ongoing self-directed learning. I want you to think back to your first day. You probably had that perfectly color-coded plan, all these high hopes, but the teacher that you were then and the teacher that you are now are completely different, and that's okay. Teaching isn't about knowing everything and getting everything perfectly correct or engaging every single student every single day. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's a learning curve in and of itself. So it's about the capacity to learn and reinvent your skills as the world and your students change. So we can see through our unlearning Venn diagram. I don't know if you're like me, I love me a good Venn diagram. It's kind of this process where we have to sometimes unlearn things, or relearn things, or as we learn things. So it's kind of almost like that cycle you've got going on, that sometimes when we learn things, they're not fitting in with what we need. And so we might have to unlearn some things, or we might have to relearn some things as we progress through our teaching career. But it isn't about knowing everything. It's about the capacity to reinvent your skills as your students change. Adaptability equals longevity. To do this, we need to reframe our thinking. There's this evolution that we go through as a teacher. And so we have to stop thinking of, I just need to get through this, and we need to shift our focus into that growth mindset. You've probably talked about that with your students before, right? Having that growth mindset. So what does that look like in terms of being a teacher? So when we're looking at lesson planning, we've got this, like, if you're just surviving, it's very rigid, and the plan has to be finished. But if we can reframe that into our thriving response, then the plan is a hypothesis. It's an educated guess about what we think that we'll be doing for our lessons. We don't want to be in that rigid mindset that keeps us locked in our plan being finished. And then if we're looking at a reaction to a failed lesson, and we'll talk about this a little bit more too in just a bit, but our stuck thinking is that a failed lesson, it's my fault, I failed, like that's it. But if we're thinking in a thriving mindset, then a failed lesson is actually valuable data for us to look at. And so we can grow. If it's a focus of attention, we're focusing, and if we're stuck, we're focusing on the clock. How much more time do I have? How much time do I have to fill? Maybe how much time until I get to go home? Like we're just surviving, right? But if we're in that thriving mindset, then we're focused on student engagement. Are they getting it? Are they, excited about learning? Am I excited about learning? So it's like that engagement, like we're really focused on that and not just about getting through it. And finally, our view on change. We have to be okay with it. A lot of times we're not. We view it as a disruption, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is throwing me off. Everything's out of whack. But change can help us, right? It's just the environment that we're in, and we have to view it as that. Like it's not just set in stone. It's not rigid. It's changing, And that's just the environment that we live in as teachers. And so to thrive, we have to accept that. So remember, your early years are not proof of whether you're good. They are the start of your growth trajectory. So why adaptability? Why do we need to be adaptable? Because classrooms are inherently unpredictable. You can have the best lesson in the world, but if a fire drill happens or students are just off, you need to pivot. Adaptability allows us to meet the diverse needs of students by adjusting on the fly rather than sticking rigidly to a plan that isn't working. There's a quote by Heraclitus. I'm not good at names, I will admit that. Something I'm working on. But he said that change is the only constant in life. That's just the only thing we can rely on, is that things will change, and that's okay. Because the bottom line is that adaptability protects our energy, and it improves student learning, and it supports long-term sustainability. So what does adaptability look like in the classroom? Well, it's using quick checks to see if students are with you. It's adjusting that pacing when confusion shows up. It's swapping a task without losing the learning goal. And it's responding to new curriculum, admin shifts, or technology changes without spiraling. I know that could be the hard part, right? But it's about being flexible. And it's this set of repeatable behaviors, right? These four repeatable behaviors that we see. Being able to just go along with those not only is going to save our sanity, but it's going to help us thrive. The key is to remember to hold tight to the goal, but not to hold tight to the method, right? So we want to hold tight to the goal and hold loosely the method. I want to talk about something that's really helped me. I call it the 2-minute pivot. Okay. And so this is when you realize that a lesson is flopping, right? The first thing that we want to do is we don't just want to push through it. Again, we're not just looking at the clock, trying to run out our time. We want to focus on that student engagement. And so it's kind of a little flow sheet for you there. Is the lesson working, right? We're monitoring their engagement. We're looking at if they're getting it or not. Like if we start to see those confused looks or the staring off into space or the chatting with their partner, right? So if they're not, we want to stop the lesson. We don't want to keep going. Now, this doesn't mean like 1 or 2 students. Like this is like kind of on a whole, right? That they're just all looking confused or they're all just spacing out. If it's not working, you want to stop the lesson. You want to name what's going on. So you're like, maybe, oh, I see some confusion here, or I see that we're not paying attention, or I see that we might be getting a little bored. Like, don't be afraid to call out what you're seeing, but then use a formative assessment to help you determine if it's just, like I said, boredom, or if they're really not getting it. Some examples might be a quick fist to 5, where you say, okay, using your fingers, show on your hand how you're understanding this. Like, are you like a 5, like I'm absolutely understanding it, or a 1 saying I am completely lost? And just have students show you that quick one. Or if you've got more students that are a little bit more shy, you can do the post-it method and just quickly hand out post-its and tell them to write 1 to 5, or have them write down whatever they're most concerned or confused with, or you could, whatever you want to do, just a really quick assessment there to see how they're doing. So if they're lost, okay, if they're lost, you want to start adding that scaffolding, or modeling, like, or regrouping, or changing the activity entirely. You don't want to just keep going the way you're going. You need to be able to switch it up. So you're analyzing those results. And then if you have to, kicking into to plan B, right? These are some things that you should have ready ahead of time. So maybe it's like you want to do a turn and talk, because sometimes talking with a partner can help them see it in a different light, or help them understand it a little bit better. You could do mini whiteboard responses, where you have them all write down, a question, an answer to a question, and then show their answer. You could do an example versus non-example sorting. So maybe you've got, you're talking about a theme. And so you give some examples of theme and some examples of what's not a theme or not part of the theme. And you have them kind of identify those. Or you can do like a guided practice with them. Like maybe if you're doing math, just have them take a couple of problems where you work on it together, just to kind of reset things. So really it's about being prepared for your lesson in case what you're doing isn't working, having some quick pivots that you can jump to for your plan B. It's important to remember that pivoting isn't failure, it's responsive instruction. That's what we want. We want that responsive instruction. Looking at adaptability, there are 3 dimensions for a teacher, okay? It's not just about the lesson plans, it's about your mindset. So we see there first, the dispositional flexibility is keeping a constructive outlook or a positive outlook, even when conditions aren't ideal. Like maybe there are admin or curriculum shifts. It can be really easy to get down and get frustrated, and that can carry into your lesson, and your students can feel that. So being flexible means being okay if things change up, and being positive about it. I'm not talking toxic positivity, but just there's always a way to find something positive that you can hang on to. And having that mindset is going to help you be adaptable. That second one there, we see emotional flexibility. This means managing your stress triggers and staying regulated even when students are dysregulated. This could be the hardest thing for a lot of new teachers. There is going to be a lot of dysregulated students happening a lot of the time. And this is a skill that you can learn. It takes practice, it takes patience, but it is a skill that you can learn to have that emotional flexibility where you're staying regulated even in the face of their dysregulation. So staying calm when a student is just having a meltdown or being disruptive, because that means that's going to help them. Not only are you modeling how to stay calm for the student, but you're also feeding that calmness to them as well. Versus if you get stressed out and react to their reaction, you're feeding more into that stressful reaction, right? So having our own self-regulation is so important. And don't feel bad or frustrated if you don't have it yet, because that's a lot of new teachers that I see struggle with that. So just being cognizant of it, saying, hey, this is something that I need to work on, I need to focus on, will really help, and it will increase your adaptability. The last one is cognitive flexibility, okay? Which is when instead of focusing on the problem, like having a tech failure, you're using that as a chance to model problem solving, right? Like, so if something happens or a disruption happens, or maybe they ask you a question you don't know, you could panic and just be like move on or ignore it or make up an answer. Don't do that, but use it as an opportunity to model for your students. So if you don't know something, model, oh, I don't know that. Let me look it up. This is how I would do that. This is how I would use scholarly sources to find an answer to my question. Or if your technology fails, say, well, this isn't, ideal, but model what that problem solving behavior looks like. So cognitive flexibility, if problems come up, if things come up, use those as an opportunity to model things for your student, for them to learn. So remember, remaining calm during unexpected changes is a skill. It improves your relationship with students, and it's something that can be improved with effort and practice. So all of these things that you see here are things that can be improved with effort and practice and experience. Moving into a lifelong learner. So we talked about adaptability. Now we're going to look at lifelong learning. This is the second key to thriving as a teacher. It's not big, huge steps, okay? It's these small habits that we're building. So along with adaptability, in order for you to thrive as a teacher, you also need to become a lifelong learner. And it doesn't mean going out and getting another degree every year, right? I mean, maybe once in a while you might want to, that's fine, but that's not what this means. It means embracing a mindset where you're always a student of your craft. So you're always a student of teaching. You always want to better your craft. You always want to learn how to become a better teacher. And you'll be tempted to want to cram it all in at once. I know we're super busy. It's hard to find the time, but drinking from a fire hose isn't what we're looking for here. We want small doses of growth. Think micro PDs, right? Maybe like a 10-minute podcast on your commute, or reading one blog post a week. Or my favorite, I like to follow specific hashtags on social media for new teaching ideas. Not only is it entertaining and like it's this camaraderie, like, oh, I'm not the only one going through stuff like this, but it's also very educational for me. I've learned a lot of great stuff by looking up certain hashtags or following certain teachers on social media, and that one's pretty fun. And it's also not about implementing everything you're learning all at once. It's focusing on one or two things at a time and adding them until they become a habit. So you're picking one or two things, you're doing them and doing them and doing them until they become a habit. You don't even need to think about it, and then you can move on to the next one. This will help you not feel so overwhelmed. Like, because if we try to do too much at once, we're obviously not going to be able to do it all. We're going to fail at some of them, right? And that's going to leave us feeling frustrated or down on ourselves. But if we're just picking one or two things, we're more likely to be successful. And it's easier to make that a habit to where you don't even need to think about it anymore. Another thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to do this alone. You've got your PLCs, your professional learning communities. These are a gold mine for shared wisdom. If your school doesn't already offer them, consider consider forming your own. And this could be like grade level PLC, or you could do a subject specific PLC. It's just working with other teachers, kind of similar, either in the same grade level or the same subject matter, where you can just work together and talk and like sometimes even just venting will help. But these are a gold mine for shared wisdom. It's collaborating with colleagues. You can also do peer-led observations. Okay. This is like just asking one of your other teachers or your instructional coach to just come in and watch you for a bit. And keep an eye on like what you're doing. And then it's less stressful than like observations, right? And that's why we like to do the peer ones, because then it's not, somebody like marking you down for all of the things they think you forgot. But this is just entirely to help you get better. So asking other teachers specifically if they can come in, or like I said, if you've got an instructional coach, just asking them to come in and do an observation for you can really help. You can also seek out a mentor. This is something I definitely relied on. A teacher that that I admire, that I see, that's I think is doing fantastic. Asking them to kind of just mentor me, or not even asking them to mentor me. Like if you're a little nervous about, hey, can you mentor me? Like just asking them questions. Like, hey, would it be all right if I asked you some questions every now and then? Most of them will say yes. And if they say no, then they're probably not the one you want as your mentor anyways. So find somebody that would be like really enthusiastic about it. Yeah, I'll help you. And just lean on them for like, there is no stupid question. Just ask all of the things and let them kind of help you along. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here, right? To get better, we don't have to do everything on our own. it's changing our mindset to remember that collaboration is a professional skill, not a sign of weakness. Okay. We want to collaborate and build that professional skill. So we're not saying, oh, I'm just a failure and I'm weak and I need help. It's a skill that we're learning. So take full advantage of all of those things. And then lastly, in our lifelong learning is the power of self-reflection. There's so much power in self-reflection. This is where our real growth happens. Some things you can try are here on the screen. A 3-minute Friday journal. You're just really quickly writing down what worked, what didn't, and then one small change you want to try for the next week. Just something really quick. And the cool thing is then too, when you look at it over time, you can see your growth literally there in your journal. It's pretty cool. There's also a 10-minute video review. Just take a quick recording of you teaching, could be like about 10 minutes, and evaluate yourself. So this is kind of like that peer observation, but you're observing yourself. So just take a quick recording of you teaching a lesson and see, if you missed something, what are the dynamics of your lesson? What are some things that maybe you can try and do better, or some things that worked really well? So just really reflecting on that time. And then the last one is to set SMART goals. You might have heard of this. In case you haven't, SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. These types of goals have been shown to be more effective than vague goals, like goals that you're just like, oh, I want to be better. Like, what do you want to get better in? Like being very specific, making sure that it's measurable. Like, how will I know if I, did X, Y, and Z? Achievable. You don't want to set like, I want to be the teacher of the world. Like maybe I'm sure someone somewhere is. But is that achievable for everybody? No, it's not. So make sure your goals are achievable. Make sure they're relevant. You want them specific, obviously to teaching, and time bound. Give yourself a time frame for when you will have achieved it. So having those goals will help you be more self-reflective, because then you'll be thinking about each step of what you're doing and evaluating how you're doing and seeing if there's anything that you need to change. So why does this work? It's because reflection turns experience into improvement. So we don't want to just get all this experience, we want to improve. And so reflection helps us turn experience into improvement. All right. To wrap up, I do have a weekly reflection form for you that you can download. It's a checklist for you to go through. And it kind of goes through these questions that you can ask again each week. At the end of each week, you can do this and take some time to think about not just what you want to improve, although that is on there, right? But think about what are the best moments that you had? What are some meaningful connections that you made? What are some small wins that you can be proud of? Because you don't want to just be down on yourself. Not that it's down on yourself, but you don't want to just be thinking about all the things you can improve. You also want to think about the things that you've done well. And then, like I said, we've got our question 2, which grows, how can you grow? How can you get better? Again, we're reframing those challenges as data. I didn't fail. This is just data for me to collect to see how I can do better, right? We're documenting any mid-lesson pivot, right? So if you had to do one of those pivots during your lesson, if you had to stop your lesson and assess it and pivot to something new, we want to keep track of that, because there's a very good likelihood that if you teach the same class in the future, you're going to be faced with that again, and you're going to be ready this time. Oh, I know from past experience that students struggle with this concept. I'm going to make sure This pivot worked last time, but I also want to have a couple of others in case it doesn't work again. So documenting those pivots that you make can help you grow. And then 2, 3, lifelong learning. What's one tool or strategy you tried? This is where you're kind of tracking, like, what did you do? What insights that you've gained. So if you like read a blog post and you found something great there that you want to implement, put it in there. And then question 4, action plan. What do you want to start? What do you want to stop? Or maybe what do you want to continue? This is kind of that self-reflection part. Like what is your priority for Monday? And also think about what you can do that weekend for self-care. Because again, just you don't want to get burnt out. You don't want to just constantly focus on work. You need to focus on yourself too, because that's going to help with that self-regulation. So thinking about what are some ways that you can take care of yourself over the weekend. So great little helpful tool there for the end of the week. Like I said, I will provide it so you can download it. And it's your opportunity to put it into practice. So at the end of each week, go through the questions and come up with your action plan. All right. Well, looks like our time is about up. So just wanted to reiterate our key takeaways. Thriving is a choice that you make one lesson at a time. It's not any one thing. But it is your choice. You can choose to stay in that survival mode, or you can choose to thrive as a teacher. And so that first one there, reframe your failure, because we're going to fail. Even the most experienced teachers, we're still failing. But we want to reframe that not as a failure, like that a lesson didn't work. It's not personal defeat. It's just data for us to collect. Say, okay, this didn't work. Let's try something else until we find what does work. That's going to help us improve. And we're going to adopt one new strategy per quarter. If you like, this is again up to you. You can, maybe you're doing it faster, you're doing it slower. But this is just a target to aim for, like one new strategy per quarter. Because like I said, we don't want to learn everything all at once. That doesn't work. But we want micro steps to lead us, because those are going to take us to our massive growth over time. And then we just lastly want to stay curious. It's not just about another thing to add to your to-do list. I hate that. That is not why I'm here for. I am here to help streamline your plate, streamline what to do to become a better teacher, because that's going to help you also free up time. Like being better at something means it takes you less time to do something, which is going to free up time for you, which is what every teacher dreams of, is more time. So becoming a better teacher is going to help you do that. So thriving as a teacher is going to help you do that. And that is my hope for you. And all of this will set you up for success, and it'll make sure that you're surviving, not just surviving, but thriving. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check out that resource I've got for you. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.